Hello and welcome to the Horror of It All Movie Podcast, video edition. I'm Eric. This is a first in another series that I'm going to be doing of 10 videos of my top 10 favorite horror movies in each year in the 1980s. This will be 1980. I will also be doing honorable mentions like I normally do. I'll do that right before my number one pick for the year. Let's just dive right into this. My number 10 for 1980 is The Changeling. I'll also be talking about my favorite releases of those certain movies. It's very glossy, so it's like catching the light. This is an amazing Severin edition. But I'm not fully talking about just the edition. I'm talking about the movies. The Changeling is definitely a classic if you haven't seen it. George C. Scott is in it. He plays initially a family man who ends up seeing his, I think it's his son, or I can't remember if it's son or his daughter. But anyway, with his wife, and they get hit by a truck, and he sees it. And then he goes to a huge mansion type house, I believe, rents it out to work on music and to get away until he realizes that the house is haunted. And at first I think he thinks that it's his family until he digs deeper into the secrets of that town and finds some horrific things. One of the most memorable moments in the movie, I always thought it was simplistic, but it was creepy. A ball gets bounced down the stairs. So he thinks it's his kid playing with him, maybe. I don't know. And he picks it up, and he goes and throws it in a river that's a ways away from his house, off a bridge. Comes home, the same ball comes down the stairs. I don't want to give any more away. I just wanted to say that, but The Changeling is so great. I was definitely happy to watch it with Joe Bob. That was the best time I ever watched it because you get so much information. But yeah, this, like I said, this Severin edition is my favorite edition. But yeah, The Changeling is a classic. That's my number 10 pick for 1980. Moving right along here. My number 9 pick is the Italian classic Anthropophagus. And again, this is a great Severin release. I actually have 2 releases of it. I have the 88 Films release, which originally came with a slipcase. They both have pros and cons, so it's hard to really pick, to be honest. I can't pick, but anyway, it's not about just the release, but that's why I wanted to show both, because I can't really pick between the two of these. This doesn't come with a slip anymore, it looks like that. But anyway, Anthropophagus, if anybody doesn't know about it, is a Joe D'Amato directed movie, and George Eastman plays the the monster, I guess you would call it. There's also the infamous, it's on both covers, him eating his own guts. So yeah. It definitely has one of those, that I like in movies, the whole factor of, trapped or claustrophobic, things like that. It's a group of people that gets trapped on an island, and there's a killer on the island who is a cannibal. And there's definitely some scenes that are pretty intense, like when they do a flashback of how he got there with his son and his family, and that he ate them. And then there's a very infamous scene with a pregnant woman. That's all I'll say. But I've always liked Anthropophagus. I'm a big Joe D'Amato fan, as well as George Eastman, even though neither one of them, that's their real name. But yeah, my number 9 pick for 1980, Anthropophagus. Number 7, moving right along. This is, I guess, the best release of this as of right now. Maybe it'll get a better one. I'm not sure. This one's not too bad. It's got some stuff on it. But it is Don't Go in the House. Sorry about the glare. It's definitely a creepy one. It's about a guy who basically picks up women, brings them to their house, and sets them on fire. It has a bit of a Psycho-esque thing to it because he has his mother's body. I don't know if I just gave too much away there, but the same guy, which I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry. Anyway, there's not much else I can say about Don't Go in the House. It's definitely a classic to me. It was one that I did see when I was younger. Actually, I saw all 3 of these so far when I was younger, and I've always loved this. This release is pretty good. It's a Scorpion release. Might get better ones. I don't know, but there's not much else I can say about it, but I definitely love it. That's my number 7 pick for 1980. Moving right along here. Number 6. Another one I get to watch with Joe Bob, and it's a favorite. Not of a lot of people, but it is a favorite of me, of mine. This is from Luigi Cozzi, Contamination. This is a great Arrow release. Great, really cool slipcover. That's the reverse art of the original. And, man, who is, Ian McCullough is in it, who was in Zombie. It's another Italian quote-unquote alien ripoff. I don't find it a complete alien ripoff, but I have talked on my channel of how I feel about ripoffs and how I look at them. They definitely take the initial idea, but then they make it their own. This one basically is about these, like, alien pods that people see, and they got to get away from them, and they'll explode. I know that doesn't help the movie much, but I like it. There's a lot of exploding stomachs, right? Exploding stomachs, exploding chests, I guess, in the movie. So that's reminiscent. The way they do it is definitely different, but I really like it. There's not a whole lot else I can say about it other than, like, who was in it. This is an amazing release. It has so much stuff on it. I know you can't really see that. I don't have a great camera, but I'm trying. But my number 7 pick for 1980 is Luigi Cozzi's Contamination. So, yeah, I was trying to see, because I can't think off the top of my head of an alternate title. I know a lot of Italian movies have those alternate titles, but yeah. Number 7. Number 6. You would think for me this might be higher or lower, depending. I don't know, because it was on another top, however how many that was, of my favorite Friday the 13th movies. But this is for 1980. Number 6 is Friday the 13th, the original one. It's one of my least favorite in the series. I don't know why. It gradually over time goes lower and lower, but it is a classic, and it does have some great kills. And this is, of course, from the box set. This is a great addition. Yeah. So, and it has another, like, flip artwork, some original artwork there. What else can be said really about Friday the 13th if you don't know what it's about? Jason is not the killer. If you've seen Scream and haven't seen Friday the 13th, you know that. But spoiler alert, it's his mother. But yeah, there's some great kills. Betsy Palmer is the star. I've met her a couple of times. She is a sweetheart. Kevin Bacon is in this. He doesn't speak too highly of it, but I don't think he trashes it either. It's kind of in the middle there, because he's mentioned about effects before, and I was like, oh, those. He kind of like dumbed down the effects. I don't know how to put it, how he did it, but I'm like, yeah, okay, dude. Big Hollywood star used to, like, CG or whatever, and that's not a knock at Kevin Bacon. I love Kevin Bacon. Stir of Echoes, highly recommended, highly underrated. That has nothing to do with the 80s though. But yeah, not much else can be said really. My number 6 pick is Friday the 13th. Number 5, amazing release as well. Christmas Evil. Now, if you haven't seen this, the Vinegar Syndrome put it out. I don't know if you can still get this slipcover. It was one of their later slipcovers. This didn't come with a slipcover. This is one of their old releases. This is number 60. Christmas Evil's always been a classic for me. I think pretty much all these I've loved since I was a kid for the most part. I'll mention ones that either I saw later or liked more later. But anyway, my number 5 pick, as I said, Christmas Evil. It's basically about this guy who's obsessed with Christmas, and obsessed especially with Santa Claus, to the point where he thinks he is Santa Claus. And it's not necessarily a slasher. It's more of a psychological thing up until... Nobody gets killed until later in the movie, but it's pretty brutal. The outside of the church scene is pretty brutal. I think it's cool too. I like it a lot. And the guy's brother is trying to help him, and it's just not happening. Like I said, but it's definitely a Christmas staple for me. I always watch it. Now that I have this, it's definitely amazing. Yeah, that kind of covers it for Christmas Evil, but I love this movie. And this is the back of the slip. It's pretty cool. A couple people didn't like it, but yeah, Christmas Evil, man. I think it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a fun if you like horror movies at Christmas. But yeah, number 5 for 1980, Christmas Evil. Cruising right along here. Unfortunately, I don't have a better release, but there really isn't one that I know of. But this is the only Blu-ray I have of it. I'm talking about Hell of the Living Dead. Now, this one definitely has all those alternate titles. And I have t-shirts from most of the alternate titles. AKA Virus, AKA Night of the Zombies, AKA Zombie Creeping Flesh. But I know it as Hell of the Living Dead. I initially saw it, and I keep covering it. It's just a double feature from Blue Underground with Rats from the same director, Bruno Mattei. I could be saying his name wrong. The screenplay is by one of my favorite Italian writers, and not in a shitty way. Like some people are like, oh, because he wrote Troll 2 and blah blah blah. Yeah. I don't think Troll 2 is as bad as people make it out to be. I don't think it's the worst movie ever and all this stuff. I digress. Anyway, Hell of the Living Dead. When I first saw this, I saw it on a VHS tape under Night of the Zombies, and I don't know how old I was, but I didn't like it. I don't know why I didn't like it, and then years later I got it on DVD and I watched it, and I'm like, why didn't I like this? And then I watched it again on Blu-ray, and now I love it. It is one of my all-time favorite Italian movies. Like I said, I know it as Hell of the Living Dead. It's another one of those quote-unquote rip-offs, but it's got nuclear chemical thing going on with it starts in one of those plants, and that's kind of what starts the whole zombie apocalypse. There isn't a whole lot to say about it other than that. It definitely has a Dawn of the Dead type thing to it. So I'm not blind to it, but it's still fun. I love it a lot, and it's just basically like this SWAT team goes into these these areas and stuff to try to contain it until they start finally realizing it. One of them, there's a classic scene where the guy's like, in the head, you gotta shoot him in the head. Like, it's one of those movies where you gotta forget what you already know because they don't know. I love that when that always bugs people. They're like, whoa, why don't you know that? Because it's the beginning of it. They don't know. But I love it. The Goblin did the soundtrack. I don't know how that works. Bruno Mattei has lifted Goblin stuff in his other films. But yeah, it's definitely a nice, as they call it, gut muncher here, with plenty of gore, jaw-dropping dialogue, and heart-stopping use of inappropriate stock footage. Of course, there's that. But I love Hell of the Living Dead, and it is my number... Where am I? My number 4 pick for 1980, Bruno Mattei's Hell of the Living Dead. Number 2, right? Am I at number 2? Oh, hold on. Sorry about that. I think I am. Yes, I am. Cruising right along. Just didn't think I was that far into it yet. This is the best way that you can get it. Yes, it was released in the United States. So if you're in the United States and you don't have all region, this one is going to work for you. But if you are, I highly recommend it. A lot of this stuff, if not all of it, is on the American release, but it's crammed onto discs. I remember when I first got it. I know I haven't said it yet, but I remember when I first got the release, I was literally going for a long time. Like, usually I like to just get it all out, but it was a couple days because I had to take breaks. There's just so much, but I'm talking about the classic Lucio Fulci's City of the Living Dead. Now, I definitely messed up now that I just thought of it. This is, in fact, number 3. This was number 4. My number 3 pick, City of the Living Dead. I'm glad I caught that. I hate when I do that, but we're just going to plow through here. I'm just doing this for the fun of it. So, if you don't know much about City of the Living Dead, like I said, it's a Lucio Fulci movie. It is one of the Gates of Hell movies. One of the Gates of Hell opens, and a bunch of zombies come out, but it's not your typical zombie movie at all. It's not even like Lucio Fulci's zombie, really. Few classic kill scenes, for sure, is in The Drill, and I've been explained that in special features how that worked. And I'm still almost like, I get it, but the effect works so well that thankfully it doesn't like take anything away. Because sometimes that does for me. I'm like, you kind of ruined it. It doesn't, because it looks so good. But yeah, this dad gets so angry at this guy that he thinks doing stuff with his daughter. He slams him on a table, and it's a fucking table drill. Like the bit is like this thick, and it goes just like right through his head. So good. And then there's, of course, the scene where the woman stares at the priest and throws up her guts. There's just so, this is definitely like, I don't know, man. Top 2, top 3, possibly number 1. Fulci. This is absolutely amazing, and this is just, like I said, it's Arrow, and it goes on for days. I won't even get into that because it's not about the release, but City of the Living Dead is a lot of fun. It basically starts with a priest who kills himself, hangs himself, and it opens the door. Gates of Hell. The ending has been talked about in length where people don't necessarily get it. I get what you're saying because it kind of just like, what? Over time, I get it more. I won't go into it, but yeah, it's a great release, great cast, some cool art there. But yeah, man. Just trying to think. I'm blanking. Christopher George, that's it. And Caroline McCall, who was in House by the Cemetery and The Beyond. She was also in this. So my number 3 for 1980 is City of the Living Dead. Now, my number 2 I talked about already a bit, and I said I'd do a whole video on it. I've been talking enough about it on the channel, but I'll still probably do a video because one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. The worst thing I ever read was, I won't say who, but I read on Letterboxd somebody saying like, I get why you people love this or something along those lines, but you were a kid and you were wrong or something, and it's like, well, that's your opinion, dude, but you don't have to say it like a fact. But whatever, to each their own. Yes, I saw it as a kid, but it still 100% holds up. I like it even more now, if that's even possible. But I'm talking about Fade to Black. And of course, I'll show both of my releases, both the Vinegar Syndromes. They're both the same release, just different slips. What else can be said about Fade to Black that I haven't said? I'm surprised it's number 2, but my number 1, it makes it obvious. I had, as I said, this would be my favorite Vinegar Syndrome release of all time, and that's saying something, because I have hundreds of Vinegar Syndrome. That it's about this guy, Eric Binford, who loves movies, like the tagline says. Eric Binford lives for the movies. Sometimes he kills for them too. I love this art here on the back of this slipcase. But yeah, it's just basically about this guy who's obsessed with movies, and it starts getting into his head, and there's these like bullies that bother him, and that's not what it's necessarily about, like why he kills, because they're just one of them. But he kills people in different characters. Sometimes he doesn't actually kill them. Sometimes it's an accident, like the guy in well, I guess that's kind of an accident. He knew he had a heart problem, but his boss said he worked in a film storage place, I guess you would call it, and he had a mummy costume on, and there's a great story about that in special features, along with a lot of other stuff, where he just scares him to death, essentially, and he has heart problems, and he ends up giving him a heart attack. Or the girl that falls on the fence and gets, I think, the thing in her neck. I think it's in her neck. Yeah. So that's kind of an accident, but I don't know, man. I haven't heard a lot of people say anything except that one, like against it, but to each their own. But my number 2 of 1980 is definitely Fade to Black. I can watch this anytime, over and over. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I can't say enough great things about it, which I will continue to do, because I'm going to do a whole video on Fade to Black and get into more detail on it, but man, I love Fade to Black. Number 2 of 1980 for me is Fade to Black. Now, as I said, before I get to number 1, I'm not going to go into detail with these, but I'm going to go into some honorable mentions. I'm just going to go into, and I'll show the releases that I have. Honestly, they're all pretty good releases. One of them, I'm hoping for a better release. I have both DVDs of it, but the first one I'm going to talk about, it's in a double feature, but is the Italian shock masterpiece, I guess. It's pretty fucked. David Hess from Last House on the Left fame is in it, and I'm talking about House on the Edge of the Park. Man, there's a lot of stuff in this. It's pretty brutal. They hold these people captive. There's rape. So if that's not for you or your cup of tea or whatever, I have to say I have seen another comment by somebody on social media. I won't even go into that much detail. That basically said that I won't even go into the movies you were talking about, but basically said, like, if you watch rape on movies, then you're like pro rape or some shit. I'm like, what? Okay, then, but you watch horror movies, so are you pro murder? Like, her statement didn't hold water. Anyway, House on the Edge of the Park is pretty brutal. I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's David Hess is in it. It's also directed by Giro Diodato, who did Cannibal Holocaust, which, but yeah, my first honorable mention, House on the Edge of the Park. My second one is another Italian movie, big surprise, that stars John Saxon, and it also has, what's his name? Damn it, I can't figure out his name, but he's in it. People know what I'm talking about. He's also in City of the Living Dead. He's the one that gets the drill in his head. He's in a lot of Italian movies. I'm talking about Cannibal Apocalypse. This release isn't too bad. It's a Kino release. I like Kino. I do. They don't normally do reverse, so that's cool. But I've always liked this movie. But seeing it again on Blu-ray, I liked it even more. Not just because it looked better, but sometimes movies over time just I like better. But that's definitely an honorable mention. Cannibal Apocalypse. I'm trying to think. There was other titles: Cannibals in the Streets, An Invasion of the Flesh Hunters. But yeah, Cannibal Apocalypse. I know some are gonna be like, "Why isn't this in your top 10?" Because it's my top 10. It's gonna get harder and harder through these, and I'm even going to get into some things that I'll mention again. That certain movies, there's a little thing with me where if it was released in America in a different year than it was actually originally released, that's the way that I'm going to put it in there. Granted, not always, because sometimes I don't know that or whatever. But anyway, I digress. That has nothing to do with this. But I know a lot of people are going to be like, that's totally in your top 10. It's not in my top 10. It's in my top 20, but Maniac. What else can be said about Maniac? Amazing time again watching it with Joe Bob. Amazing effects by Tom Savini. It starred Joe Spinell in one of his most infamous, or if not his most infamous role. Bill Lustig directs it. This is an amazing release. I believe it's on 4K now because that's what Blue Underground's doing. I do not have it on 4K. I don't need it. It just says new 4K restoration. I didn't need it on 4K. I didn't wait. Certain ones I'll either wait, or if I don't have them at all, I will upgrade to that. Like the Dead and Buried is coming out. I have an old Blu-ray of that, but I'm excited for that. That's coming out really soon. But yeah, Maniac definitely honorable mention. Could be in top 10. I know. And then speaking of Ruggiero Deodato, there's nothing I can really say about it. And again, with Joe Bob, this was a big thing with some people. Like, I can't watch it because the animal cruelty or whatever. The infamous Cannibal Holocaust. It's Cannibal Holocaust. What can I say? Of course, it's at least in my honorable mentions. This is a heavy Italian year. The rest are Italian. There's two more honorable mentions. Nightmare City. I know a lot of people don't like it for a variety of reasons. The whole premise of the movie is a little bit weird. I won't give that away because it's kind of a thing at the end. But what I will say is I think it's cool because it's like a foreshadowing. It told him type of thing, what was going to happen, things like that. I already almost gave too much away. The zombies are definitely different. They're fast. They use weapons, which was different for that time for sure. But yeah, I've always loved it. It is directed by Umberto Lunzi, I believe. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. Because I'm blanking, but the only thing that sucks with arrows, it doesn't really tell you. Yes, I was right. Okay. Yes, Nightmare City. And my last one is actually, I have two releases, so I was going to show them, and they're both under two different titles. I'm talking about Zombie Holocaust or Dr. Butcher, MD. Now, both releases are pretty good. This is the 88 Films one. It came with a book. Well, that's not the book, but that's just the card. But yeah, this is another one that was also in the Video Nasties, which ironically, all three of Ian McCullough's infamous Italian horrors are in there. So, and then this is probably the better of the two releases, but I'm glad I have both because it does have some different stuff. Like this has a documentary on it and different interviews. Dr. Butcher MD comes with a free barf bag, which I have, which is pretty sweet, like they would give away at the movie theater. This was definitely an infamous movie on 42nd Street. I honestly can't remember the differences between the two titles, but I like them both. I think they're a lot of fun. But yeah, the Italian classic, Dr. Butcher MD. This is the Severin release. Their reverse on their wrap is Zombie Holocaust, which is very similar to this one. This one has a reverse too, but it's still Zombie Holocaust, but it's like the zombie. But yeah, I really like it. This one was actually kind of hard not to put in my top 10, but when you have a top 10, you only have 10. So, but yeah, my number one favorite of 1980 is, of course, The Shining. Even people that don't like horror movies, I've heard love The Shining. This is the 4K release. This is the most current release that I know of. This is a great release. It looks amazing. But it was really good to have. I've had it on every format that I've ever had, because I've never had beta, but of course I've had it a few times on VHS, from either wearing it out or somebody never gave it back to me or stole it, whatever. And then, of course, DVD and Blu-ray. But this is a really cool release. It's pretty cheap, too, when you can catch it. I think I caught it on an Amazon sale. But what else can be said about The Shining? I mean, it's The Shining. It's about the Torrance family who goes to the Overlook Hotel to take care of it in the winter. Well, Jack Torrance does. And the spirits there kind of take over him and try to force him into a frenzy of kill your family. And if you haven't seen The Shining, I mean, I don't want to give too much else away, but who hasn't seen The Shining? I mean, it's possible, anything's possible. But if you're watching something like this, I would think you've seen The Shining. But yeah, I know Stephen King was never too keen on Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I understand, it's very different from the book. I have read the book. The TV movie is closer to the book with Steven Weber, but come on, I can't help it. It's in my top 10 horror movies of all time. Let's just put it that way. But this is my number one of 1980, The Shining. I love it. I can watch it anytime, especially like watching it in the winter. But yeah. All right, so that's it. This was fun. I hope all goes well with it, with uploading and everything. So until next time, I'm gonna do 1981, and I'm just gonna go through these and have fun with it. My top 10 of 1981 is up next. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm Eric. This has been the Horror of It All Movie Podcast. Until next time.